And so, and I think the thing too is like when you look at this league and look at the two teams that are in the finals, what do they have? Yes, they do have a traditional big in Isaiah Hartenstein or Hartenstein. Is that? I can't remember.
I've heard. Okay, so I always thought it was Hartenstein, but I met people this past month that were all saying Hartenstein.
And I know because he's German. I know because he's German. So
I got thrown by it. Now I'm saying Hartenstein. I used to say Hartenstein, and no one said anything. And then I started hearing people say Hartenstein. I'm gonna say Hartenstein now too because I got thrown by it.
Yeah. We'll go with Hartenstein. Yes, Hartenstein plays sort of like a more traditional big role. But look at Chet. He's spacing the floor. You look at Cleveland and they have their two big lineup where Evan Mobley plays the 4 to start the game, and then they shuffle things around when Allen goes to the bench and Mobley moves back to the 5. But Mobley can stretch the floor. And so I do think that you could have a situation where, you know, whoever they draft could play minutes at the 5, but they can also play minutes at the 4 beside Okongwu, because I don't think Okongwu is quite a power forward. But if you can add, say, like a 7-footer beside him, and in the minutes that Jalen is on the bench, I mean, you could really mess around and have some really fun minutes in the front court there.
Yeah, and to go off of that, like I was saying, is like if you could basically clear up some money off of like Terrence Mann, and we said earlier maybe Kobe Buffy, and that's like $20 million you're shaking off right there. And that would either give you one guy that I think will be available with around their second pick is a Danny Wolf, which I think a lot of people who's a combo big. I think he's able to play both the 4 and 5, more offensively suited to play the 4, but defensively he's not going to be able to guard the 4, but he's not like, you know, not going to be a rim protector, but he could really be that like kind of change of pace, yin yang, where Okongwu's the defensive guy, you throw out Wolf there. And
I also think you can flip it where if he's playing the 5 and you pair him alongside Jalen Johnson, that could also work out pretty well, because Jalen is a pretty solid rim protector. And I think that's one of the reasons why we really see success between him and Okongwu together, is that they really complement each other's skills on both sides of the ball. So I think you could kind of have something similar with Wolf, who's a little bit more of a consistent shooter than Jalen, because that is kind of coming along a little bit more for Jalen. He's still not quite where you would want him to be, but I think you could kind of have that. And Jalen's a lot stronger defensively. And so you can kind of have him pick up a little bit more of the slack, I think, with Wolf on that side of the ball.
Yeah. And I think that would be like their ideal draft. Like if they can get, you know, best player available with their top pick, and then a Danny Wolf with that second one. I don't know. This is something that made me to think once you were talking about, you know, looking for a guy who can pair with Jalen Johnson and even Okongwu, is let's say if they miss out on a Wolf, or, you know, they go maybe package their pick and do something else, they still need to figure out the front court spot. Do you think they could be a team that like Asante Alama would be, or an Isaiah Stewart, or somebody that would like basically they are able to move off the Terrence Mann money, and that creates like $20 million. You have now Adama, who played the 3, the 4, and the 5 with the Grizzlies. He's kind of, and now he could literally play with Johnson and Okongwu at the same time, or with one of them. And then Stewart seems to be the odd man out.
I'm a huge fan of Isaiah Stewart.
Same. He clearly is the odd man out, just because they're going to have to pay people, and Durant figured things out this year. So he's a guy in the past was shooting 4 threes a game. Now they cut that down this year, but he's another one who would be perfect to play next to Okongwu.
For sure. And I also think the other thing too is like he's sort of the toughness that this team is sort of missing as well. Like they need somebody, and like they kind of got that out of George Niang, just because he's like such a trash talker, and Isaiah Stewart kind of has like the attitude to back it up a little bit more. And so I think, and that's the thing with this Hawks team, is that you don't really, I'm not saying that I need somebody to go out there and, you know, start a fight every night, because that's not like, yes, I know Isaiah Stewart has developed that reputation once the whistle blows and the ball tips off and everything like that. But, you do need somebody who can like kind of invoke a little bit of fear into your opponents. And I think this Hawks team sort of missed that. When I look at other teams, I think, KD is not somebody that I would want to piss off. I would never want to piss off LeBron. And then when I think of somebody on the Hawks, there's like not really anybody that I'm like, ooh, I'm terrified to piss you off. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like the James Johnson. Like
Yeah.
I've been seeing all those James Johnson clips this past like week or two.
For sure. And I mean, granted, the Thunder doesn't really have that, but Shea backs it up with what he does on the court. Like, I wouldn't want to piss off Shea, so to speak. I mean, granted, I wouldn't want to piss off Trae Young either, because I'd be terrified that
Lou Dort. I'll give it. They have two Germans.
Yeah.
Okay,
So yeah, I do think you kind of need that little bit of attitude, on your team. And I think I love Isaiah Stewart for his intensity. He has such a high motor. The way that he runs the floor, he gets back in transition, and they need more guys like that. And to your point about complimenting Jalen Johnson, like, can you imagine pairing them and Isaiah's running down the court with him, and you could have Jalen lob to him? And so, and the thing with Isaiah is he does that consistently. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, no, completely. And as I said earlier, I feel like they're literally a stone's throw away from being a team. I'm not even playing, but being a top 6 seed in the East. Because if they can, I feel like the back end of the bench is like kind of figured out, because they have the young guys and like Don Barlow, Mo Gay, and company that like, you're figuring it out. But George Niang, as we said, Karis LeVert, Larry Nance, like those, if you can bring in, as we said, like a Danny Wolf, if you can bring in an Isaiah Stewart and you keep the same starting 5, now you have a 10-man rotation right there. That isn't that, especially if you can get a backup point guard that's competent, or at the very least a Corey Joseph-esque. I
think the big thing is available too. That's the huge thing, is that they just haven't had a backup point guard that's been a true backup point guard that's been available.
And that's like obviously as we said, the biggest availability or abilities availability. And to me, I think the trade market might be like the best route for them, especially with these exceptions, then going into free agency, because all the best free agents this year are restricted, and they have the exceptions that they need to use. So if I'm getting at from what you've told me, is that if the Hawks are going to make roster changes, it's more than likely going to be via trade than making signings when the new league starts.
Yeah, and especially because I think the only signing is if they're re-signing their own guys, because they can. But yeah, it's hard for me to see them being able to bring in somebody like completely fresh and new. But yeah, if I had to say, if I were them, I kind of agree with you. I would try to sort of move off that Terrence Mann contract, just because one, you could bring in 2 guys for that, or again, you can use the trade exception too, right? Because one, it would create that trade exception, but then you also have, as we mentioned, 3 others that they can utilize.
Yeah, exactly. And that would give you a plethora of moves to do there. Not only the $20 million you'd create through Bufkin Man, but also being able to then do lateral moves with the other exceptions. But that was everything I had to ask you, Lauren, today. I thank you so much for that. And by the way, we talked about it earlier. You're with the Journal-Constitution.
Yeah.
You just dropped that post with Trae Young, and basically tell us a little teaser about it, and I'll have a link in the description.
For sure. So I got the opportunity to go to OKC for the first game of the finals, just because that's where Trae Young is from. And he graciously gave me a couple minutes of his time to talk about what he's been up to this off season, and just what he's looking forward to doing as far as trying to bring a championship to Atlanta, just because, watching the team that he's kind of rooted for his whole life in the Thunder, it sort of brings a little bit more motivation to him to actually win one for himself.
No, that's really cool. That's really cool. And how long's the flight there to OKC?
It's not that long. It's about 3 hours. So it was just, I think the big thing that really surprised me about that is that flights were ridiculous. I think it must be because of the finals, but a Delta nonstop flight was like close to $1,500. I know. I was so shocked.
That's not. I was thinking like 500. You were about to tell me.
No, I had to take a screenshot of it because I couldn't believe it. I wonder if I can find the picture.
My stomach just like hurt. Like,
hold on,
oh my
I'm
God.
gonna find you the picture. And this is through.
It's like a trip to Europe.
Exactly. This is through like my work. This is like through my work, like booking app. I don't know. Can you see?
Oh my God. Yeah, I see it. Yeah. Wow. That's crazy.
I had to take a picture. I couldn't believe it, but yeah. So.
Wow.
But it was a really fun experience. It was unreal watching Indy come back from, being down at one point like 15 and being in the building for that. It was just like dead silent at some moments with OKC fans. It's like the Pacers just steadily like cut into the lead in those last 4 or so minutes. And then that Halliburton shot.
Was it just deflated? Like, did people
like kind of deflating? Yeah. I mean, nobody left because it was so close all the way down to the end, of course. But and like the thing is, you can't even like say anything about Cason Wallace's defense really, because he was with him basically the whole time.
Yeah.
And then he pulled like Halliburton just like pulled up and then hit that midi, and you're just kind of like, did that really just happen? So I know a lot of the OKC writers, they were like, this was a lot like that Denver game. A lot like that Denver game. So for my first finals experience, I can't complain.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. That's crazy. What a great experience though for the first time.
I know. I'm blessed. Very blessed.
Yeah. Jealous right here. Jealous.
Hashtag blessed.
Yeah. No, but thank you, Lauren, for coming on. That was everything. And what's it called? I'll make sure to also tag you when I socialize this.
Okay. Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.